This next chapter will give you an excellent understanding of the most wonderful piece of mechanism which has ever been created. A mechanism whereby you may create for yourself health, strength, success, prosperity, or any other condition which you desire. To be in tune with the eternal truth, we must possess. To be in tune with the eternal truth, we must possess poise and harmony within. In order to receive intelligence, the receiver must be in tune with the transmitter. Thought is a product of mind, and mind is creative. But this does not mean that the universal will change its modus operandi to suit us or our ideas. It does mean, however, that we can come into harmonious relationship with the universal, and when we have accomplished this, we may ask anything to which we are entitled, and the way will be made plain. Welcome to Part 6, Chapter 6 of Charles Haanel's The Master Key System. In Part 6, Chapter 6 here, we're going to talk about the power of attention. Our emphasis is the power of attention, concentration. Now, what effect can be produced by thought? The reply is that thought is mind in motion, just as wind is air in motion. Its effects will depend entirely on the mechanism to which it is attached. Here then is the secret of all mental power. It depends entirely on the mechanism which we attach. It depends on the thought. If your thoughts are in a high place and your thoughts are moving like the wind, then you will produce high results. Conversely speaking, if you are in a low state, a low vibrational state, and if your thoughts are moving there, of course, the results will be similar. In the first place, there's a great mental world in which we live and move and have our being. This world is omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent. It'll respond to our desire in direct ratio to our purpose and faith. The purpose must be in accordance with the law of our being. That is, it must be creative or constructive. Our faith must be strong enough to generate a current of significant strength to bring our purpose into manifestation. In other words, as thy faith is, so shall it be unto thee. It bears the stamp of scientific test. So Haanel is basically, and this is one of the reasons why I was drawn to this particular book and why I hold on to it and continue to read it and reread it. It's because it does mesh what I knew to be true on the religious side of the tracks to what I learned to be solid evidence on the scientific side. Haanel is saying that if you create great mental presence and purpose and use your faith, then you can create for yourself a desired result. In other words, as thy faith is, so shall it be unto you. As James Allen, the great writer, also said, as a man thinketh, so is he. As Buddha also said, so many great teachers have said this in one way or the other, a man is what he thinks about most of the time. These throughout the years, throughout the ages, throughout the gurus and the religious leaders have always been consistent with thought and presence. A man is who he believes himself to be. Now, the brain is in an embryonic world, ready to develop at any time as necessity may arise. The nervous system has been compared to an electronic circuit, which is a battery of cells in which force is originated, and it's white matter to be insulated wires by which the current is conveyed. It is through these channels that every impulse or desire is carried through the mechanism. Now, here Haanel is painting a picture for us in terms of the mechanism, the actual mechanics of this body which we are encapsulated. How does it work? Where's the motor? Where's the gas? How do these things play out? And I love the way that he characteristically and detailed the layout of the body so that we can understand how this is flowing. On the spiritual side, one way, the physical side, the other. Now, the spinal cord is the great motor and a sensory pathway by which messages are conveyed to and from the brain. There's the blood supply plunging through the veins and arteries, renewing our energy and our strength, the perfectly arranged structure upon which the entire physical body rests, and finally, the delicate and beautiful skin, clothing the entire mechanism in a mantle of beauty. This then is the temple of the living God, and the individual I is given control upon his understanding of this mechanism, which is within his control, will be the result depend. So Hanel goes to great lengths to really describe for us, lay out this wonderful mechanism by which we are being carried through this universe at this particular time, our mechanism, the body in which we reside. Again, remember, you are not the body. You are not the body. You have a body. You are not the mind. You have a mind. Those are important distinctions to remember. He goes into detail about the brain, the wires of the brain, spinal cord being the great motor sensory pathway for messages to be conveyed to the brain, and how wonderfully constructed this mechanism is and how beautiful it is, and that it is the temple of the living God, which is where the individual I is in control of. Now, here's the thing I'll tell you as a person who was raised in Christianity, Southern Christianity, is that although I've heard the scripture that our body is the temple of the living God multiple times throughout my life, it never occurred to me that God actually dwelled within me or that I am that. It never occurred to me because most Christians would consider that blasphemy. Unfortunately, I don't think Jesus would receive any different of a welcome today versus what he did 2,000 years ago, because so much of what was believed in is believed now. God is way over there. We're here. There's a huge gap between us, and most Christians refer to that as sin. And so there's no way to bridge the gap other than, you somehow becoming, having this personal relationship with Jesus Christ that gets you on the other side of that gap. Listen, again, I'm not here to belittle Christianity or anything like that. I'll just tell you that there's a very different understanding and there's a much different level of power in understanding who you are as it relates to the I versus that understanding of God being away from you. And of course, I've chosen to believe that he resides here within me. And here Hanel agrees. He talks about your body actually being the temple of the living God and merging the gap between religion and science. Now, every thought sets the brain cells in action. At first, the substance upon which the thought is directed fails to respond. But if the thought is sufficiently refined and concentrated, the substance finally yields and expresses perfectly. The man who looks within instead of without cannot fail to make use of the mighty forces which will eventually determine his course in life and so bring him into vibration with all that is best, strongest, and most desirable. Now, the power of attention. Remember, we're talking today about the power of attention. The power of attention can be more readily understood by comparing it with the magnifying glass, in which the rays of sunlight are focused. Now, we have all at some point either done it ourselves or seen someone else do it. We're on the playground, we're in science class, we're somewhere, somebody has a magnifying glass, and you focus it on a piece of paper, it catches on fire, you do it with an anthill, whatever your object was. But the focus, steady focus of those sun rays generated much more heat. Now, the same sunlight, they possess no particular strength as long as the glass is moved about and the rays directed from one place to another. But let the glass be held perfectly still and let the rays be focused one spot for a length of time, the effect will become immediately apparent. So with the power of thought, let power be dissipated by scattering the thought from one object to another, no result is apparent. But focus this power through attention. Again, power of attention through attention or concentration on any singular purpose for any length of time, and nothing becomes impossible. Here's our lesson sort of encapsulated in this particular sentence, this particular verse. I've learned over the years that multitasking, although, as employers and employees, we hear all the time that an employee likes folks who know how to multitask. And so as we go through the interviewing process and we're talking to these hiring managers, we always in some shape, form or fashion talk about how we're able to multitask. And so did I. I was taught that methodology. The truth of the matter is, in my life, I've noticed that the more I've tried to do at the same time, the less effective I was in any of it. So when I concentrate on one particular task at a time and complete it, check it off, start the next task, complete it, check it off, not only am I more effective, but I feel more accomplished. So in this day and age, I boldly exclaim to anyone who asks, I am not a multitasker, nor do I desire to be. I don't desire to have my energy split. I don't desire to have my energy going in multiple different directions, certainly if I can help it. Sometimes you may be in a position on a job, career, and even at home where your people are demanding your attention, simultaneously. So it's up to us to direct our attention and to set boundaries as it relates to what we are capable of doing when. Scheduling, planning, these sorts of things can help you get away from multitasking, focus on the task at hand, complete it, move to the next task. So let's go back to the text where Hanel really stresses this in terms of his example with the magnifying glass. Again, we've all done this in some shape, form, or fashion with the magnifying glass, and it's a perfect example because when you wave it around, you don't leave it in one place. The sun rays are no different than any other sun ray, but when you hold it in one particular area, that energy, focused energy, goes into effect, and that's what he's saying in terms of thought. So with the power of thought, let power be dissipated by scattering the thought from one object to another. When you're trying to run your business, but you also need to pick up the kids from school, and you're also trying to make dinner, and you're also trying to satisfy your partner, and you'd also like to watch, whatever your favorite thing is on TV, and you also like to exercise, you've got to figure out a way. You've got to figure out a way to focus on the business. Your primary focus should be the business if that is your priority. And everything else you have to find a place for. I'm speaking from experience. It is very difficult. It is very difficult if you do not focus to be effective in the thing that you say you want to be. Focus is power through attention or concentration or on any single purpose for any length of time, and nothing becomes impossible. So the good news here is if you do focus your attention on any particular thing for any length of time, nothing becomes impossible. The saying I hear a lot is that where energy goes, where focus flows, energy goes. And we know where energy goes, we attract other things into that area, other thoughts of that same thing into that area. So, and it expands. Energy makes whatever you focus on expand. I'll give you a perfect example. If you are really irritated with your neighbors because they play their loud music or the way they park their car, the fact that their dogs bark, the more that you concentrate on that, the more that you focus on that, the more irritating it becomes. And the more you focus on it, the bigger it becomes. It expands. It expands. If you're in a partnership or relationship with someone and they obviously have good qualities, I would hope, or else you would not be in a relationship with them. But there are some qualities that are unnerving. Their car, for example, is completely messy and you hate riding anywhere with them. Now, they cook like nobody's business. They're a wonderful cook, or they're a very pleasant person to be around. My advice to you is to focus on the wanted, not the unwanted. I'll tell you this very briefly, then we'll get back into the text. One of the things that I've found out at this stage in my life is that throughout my life that everything is and is not at the same time. And I'll tell you what that means. Let's say my wife, for example, has pros and cons. We all do. When we first started dating, the pros and cons that she had were there. I chose to focus on the pros because I wanted to. I liked her and then loved her, and I wanted to. Was she con 1 and con 2 and con 3? Did those lesser attributes of her personality exist at that time? Of course they did. Did they bother me? No. Why? I was focused on the pros. You're not going to get to a point in your life where the person you're in a relationship with is flawless, or they are who you want them to be. It is not going to happen. You cannot change a person into who you want them to be. To be honest with you, you can barely keep you being who you want to be. That's where your attention should be. My advice is to focus on the positives, focus on the pros, and the cons will dissipate, realizing no one is perfect, including you. Okay? All right, so let's jump back into it. Now, the man who looks within instead of without cannot fail to make use of the mighty forces which eventually determine his course in life and so bring him into vibration with all that is best, strongest, and most desirable. Now, in order to cultivate the power of attention, this week our exercise is to bring a photograph with you to the same seat, our quiet time, our quiet space. We're going to bring a photograph with you to that same seat in the same room, same position, etc. Examine it closely, at least 10 minutes. Note the expression of the eyes, the form of the features, the clothing, the way the hair is straightened, the way the hair is arranged. In fact, note every detail shown on the photograph carefully. Now cover it and close your eyes and try to see it mentally. If you can see every single little detail perfectly and you can form a good mental image of the photograph, you're to be congratulated. If not, repeat the process until you can. This step is simply the purpose of preparing the soil. Next chapter, we're going to be ready to sow the seed. It is by such exercises as these that you will finally be able to control your mental moods, your attitude, your consciousness. Again, we're talking the power of attention, the power of concentration. There will be, this is not new news to you, there will be areas in your life demanding your attention that are not positive. There will be thoughts that come into your mind demanding your attention that, needless to say, do not deserve your attention. We have to be able to focus on wanted, not unwanted. The types of thoughts that are coming to us, we must be able to divide and conquer. And we must be able to discern which is worthy of our attention and which we need to disengage. A single idea may be worth millions of dollars, and these ideas can only come to those who are receptive, who are prepared to receive them, who are in successful frames of mind. Men are learning to place themselves in harmony with the universal mind. They are learning the unity of all things. They are learning the basic methods and principles of thinking. And this is changing conditions and multiplying results. This is what we want to do. Change condition. Live in a state of flow. Multiply the results. They are finding that circumstances and environment follow the trend of mental and spiritual progress. Action follows inspiration. Opportunity follows perception. Always the spiritual first, then the transformation into the infinite and the illimitable possibilities of achievement. We talked about this a little bit before. Everything that is first was a thought. The chair you're sitting in now, the headphones that you're listening to this recording on, even watching this on YouTube. YouTube was a thought before it became actual YouTube on the internet. The internet was a thought. So everything that you are going through, other greats, other inventors, other creators started where you are with the thought first. As the individual is but the channel for the differentiation of the universal, these possibilities are necessarily inexhaustible. In other words, you, again, listen, I've said this 100 times, you are an individual and unique expression of the universe. You are the universe. So through you, life flows. You're not life, you don't have life. You don't own life. You're not alive. You are life. So it is flowing through you. So what this is saying, Hanel is saying here that there's a limited number of possibilities that come through you when you tap into the universal mind. Universal mind is a place where all things are known. All solutions are there. All desires are there. All achievements are there. You have but to tap into it and allow it to flow through you. Thought is the process by which we may absorb the spirit of power and hold the result in our inner consciousness until it becomes a part of our ordinary consciousness. The method of accomplishing this result by the persistent practice of a few fundamental principles. As explained in this system, it is the master key which unlocks the storehouse of universal truth. Now, thought is the process by which we may absorb the spirit of power and hold the result in our inner consciousness until it becomes a part of our ordinary consciousness. We want it to resonate with us every day, be a normal thing, not even a big deal. This is how we reside. The method of accomplishing this result by the persistent practice of a few fundamental principles, as explained in this system, is the master key which unlocks the storehouse of universal truth. Now, this has been part 6. One of the more fundamental things to remember about part 6, as we taught, is the power of attention, the power of concentration. Remember, your exercise this week is to go back into the silence, take with you a photograph, do as much concentrating on that photograph, and then close your eyes for 15, 30 minutes and really just recreate that photograph in your mind. Continue to do that. And next week, next chapter, we're going to get into a little deeper exercise where we're going to use that skill set. Now, what value is the power of concentration? What value is the power of attention? It is the very highest personal accomplishment which can be acquired, and the distinguishing characteristic of each and every successful man or woman. This is the power of attention, the power of concentration, the power to stay focused on your desired result. Guys, thanks for joining this week. I hope this has been helpful. Please check out the comments below, like, and subscribe. Thank you.